Congratulations. And second of all, yes, you're right. It's all about how do you manage it. I've also learned one thing in life, that there is no such thing as the perfect relationship. Every relationship takes work, and the more we can manage these things, like understand where we're coming from, where the other person's coming from, and you're right, there's a lot of fluidity. You know what I'm saying? And so, but generally, this is what psychologists say. Generally, people will have one prominent sort of relationship attachment pattern. Again, this is not a complete and exhaustive sort of science. There's so many views and theories on relationships, but you're right, there's a lot of fluidity, and a lot of it boils down to just how do you manage these things. Beautiful reflection. Okay, let's move on, because there'll be plenty of opportunities to share. So thank you for sharing, Karthik. Are you from Australia?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Welcome. Must be like, what, 4 in the morning for you or something?
It's 10:45 in the morning. Just working from home, so I thought I'd tune in.
Okay, awesome. There are 4 things that I thought would, I feel, make relationships very powerful. The first is an ability to relate. As I was sharing earlier, this idea of we want to be understood, we want to be gotten by somebody else. And so the word relationship at its root basically means the ability to relate. So when you can relate to somebody, right? When I think we've all had moments like this, right? You're in a conversation with somebody, you're trying to explain something to someone, and you're going on and on and on. You're not really even sure if you're making sense. And then somebody in the group just goes, oh, it's kind of like when this happened. And then you go, whoa, wait, what? Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say, but you said it so much better. So that ability to relate, when that happens repeatedly in a relationship or a partnership or a professional relationship, you feel a sense of closeness to the person, right? Awareness that we're bringing some mutual baggage. I already mentioned this point, but it's worth mentioning once again that we both bring in a relationship, whether it's with a parent, father, friend, a lover, everybody's bringing something to the table, both good and bad. And it's good to recognize that. It's really good to go into a relationship with your eyes wide open, knowing, hey, this person's bringing some good, but they're also bringing some bad, just like me. Happy moments. I think it's really, really important. Some people say the ratio of difficult to happy moments in a healthy relationship is about 70 to 30. So if 70% of your relationship are usually happy, cheerful, lighthearted, and about 30% will be tense, which is, like that's normal in any relationship, then most likely it'll be a healthy relationship. But when the ratio kind of starts to tip, where it's like half the time happy, half the time sort of, like unhappy, or a little bit of a stressful situation, then those relationships are usually, going to start to like weaken over time. So it's really important for people in healthy relationships to understand what is it that can create happy moments between the two of us, right? I'll give you guys a simple example. My mom, I'm very close to my mom. I grew up, I left her when I was 14 to go to a boarding school. So I didn't get, and I grew up in West Africa. It was very different. So anyways, it took me a couple of years to really get close to my parents, especially my mom. But one thing my mom and I do every year is we go on a trip together. So we've been to Cambodia together, we've been to Thailand together, and we like to go to historical places. We like to go to museums. We like to, explore like vegan restaurants. So we're very close, and we have so many beautiful memories that I know if someday I ever have kids, I'll be like, yeah, I did this with your grandma. I took her there. So we have a really strong relationship because we've created a lot of happy moments in our relationship. And I think same with, if you're in a partnership with somebody, or if you're someone's wife or husband, finding those things where you can both be mutually happy is so important. This is basic common sense. So forgive me, it's nothing super brilliant, but I just wanted to share from my heart what I think is really valuable. And the fourth and most important quality I think that makes effective relationships is sacrifice. I think any good relationship is going to ask you to sometimes do things and perhaps receive things in a way that might go against your natural personality or characteristic, but you can see it has a lot of value for your partner or your friend, right? So for example, you might be somebody who is very, very, you may not be somebody who's very artistic or very creative, right? But your partner is somebody who's very artistic and very creative. So they produce things that are very artistic and creative. And to you, you're thinking, oh yeah, this is cool. Like, I guess you just went on Photoshop and made something. But to your partner, it's like, wait, what? Like, I spent like 6 hours working on this, like, can you show a little appreciation, please? And one of the hardest things to sacrifice is time. So just taking out that little bit of time to let your partner or your friend or your coworker just know, like, hey, that's really nice. The other avenue in life where often sacrifice is required is when people we know are in times of need. Either they're having like health issues or emotional issues, and just picking up the phone and calling them out and sacrificing some of that time in our life to make somebody else feel like, hey, I'm there for you. I feel like the strongest relationships are the ones where that kind of sacrifice is a currency. It's easy to do, maybe not easy to do, but it's something that you regularly kind of offer in that relationship. And then again, of course, it has to be reciprocal, right? The other person also has to kind of give back. One thing that can really help improve our ability to relate to others are the five love languages. Again, this is just, basic things from the field of human psychology and human behavior. Nothing that I, created or anything like that. You can again Google this. The Five Love Languages is a great book written about it. I think this stuff is really powerful. If anybody does not know what the five love languages are, I really suggest you get this book, The Five Love Languages, and read it and understand what these five love languages are. It's so powerful. But in a nutshell, words of affirmation. So what a love language is, it's how you like to give love and like to be loved. Okay? So words of affirmation, basically like words of encouragement, words of support. Like earlier, I was appreciating Dylan, right? And Dylan, he's a sarcastic Frenchman, so he goes, too many compliments. Wait, that was a Russian accent. Never mind. He's like, too many compliments. So words of affirmation might not be his love language. That might not be what gets him going. It might be something else. Physical touch. Some people just need hugs. They need cuddles. They need hold your hand. There's a monk in our spiritual family, and maybe someday some of you will meet him. His name is Radhanath Swami. He's an amazing human being, right? But one of the things that makes him super amazing is that he might go through a room and he might give out like about 50 hugs as he walks his way through the rooms. In fact, I remember one time I was talking to him and I was trying to get the words out. I was just a little, like confused or nervous or whatever. And he just started massaging my shoulder, like lovingly, like, it's okay, it's all right. So, you can tell that's a love language, that physical touch, that feeling of just, feeling close to someone. Again, this is super important to understand, because if your love language is physical touch, but your friend or your partner, and like they just don't like that, that's going to create a lot of conflict in a relationship. Quality time. Some people are super busy. I know I often get, I have friends and people I'm close to who sometimes get on my case because they feel like they don't get enough quality time with me because I'm always super busy, and that's some people's love language. They need that quality time with you. They need time just. And quality time doesn't just mean like, calling somebody up on the phone while you're driving, which is what I do sometimes, unfortunately. But it really means that one-on-one sort of energy. Like, I'm here just for you and you're here just for me, and we're really connecting. Acts of service. This is probably my love language, frankly speaking. I love doing things for others, like cooking for them. I'll clean people's room. I'll do their laundry if they're not feeling well. I'll drive a long distance to bring them something to eat. This is literally my love language, is acts of service. If someone does it for me, it really melts my heart. And receiving gifts. Some people love giving and receiving gifts. I mean, for some people, it's interesting though. For some people, that's not really a big thing. They don't really care so much what kind of gifts they receive, And so it's very interesting how if you are trying to express love by giving somebody a gift, but that's not their love language, they may not reciprocate in a way that makes you feel like your love has been accepted. This is why this is so interesting. So knowing what the person's love language is can help you modify your reaction or the energy you bring, right? Because if like, let's say me and Dylan are really good friends and it's his birthday, and Dylan is hoping that I'll just come and sit down with him and have dinner with him and we'll have a long conversation, something like that. And I'm thinking I'm super busy, so I'm just going to go to Apple and buy Dylan some new ear pods and give them to him as a present, and he'll appreciate because it's an expensive present. And Dylan is thinking, man, I hope we have dinner and we talk, share our hearts. But I'm like, hey, bro, I got you an expensive present, right? And so boom, conflict, even though I was trying to show love and, but just misunderstanding in terms of our love languages. So let's share. Who wants to share something about how not knowing someone's love language has caused maybe conflict in your life, or somebody else not knowing your love language has caused maybe perhaps some tension, or on the other side, when maybe somebody really gets your love language and they love you the way you want to be loved, and you can love them the way you want to, you love them, and it really works because the love languages are really kind of in sync. Who wants to share? Come on, I know some of you have stories about stuff like this. There's gotta be.
What's the question again?
The question is, based on these five love languages, do you have any stories or any kind of relationship stories you want to tell us, or experiences where you felt the importance of knowing someone's love language, either your own or the other person's, and because you didn't know their love language or they didn't know your love language, that it created some sort of tension or conflict? Or on the other hand, maybe you know someone's love language or they know yours, and it creates a lot of harmony or sweetness in the relationship. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll go.
All right, go for it.
So me and my partner, I didn't really know about love languages before. I just recently learned about this. So I learned that my love language is like through physical contact, like hugs, kisses, cuddles, things like that. And I didn't know that, and it caused a lot of problems between us because he had a different love language, and it kind of confused me because I wasn't feeling the reciprocation. So it made it caused a lot of problems. So I think finding out each other's love languages is very important. That way you can understand each other and love each other the way that is it's good for you guys, for the both of you. So maybe communicate that.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody else? Sway, you've been so quiet this whole time. I don't get it. I keep waiting for you to say something. I'm like, when is Sway going to speak up? And she's like, all right, here I come.
No, I do talk a lot on these things, so I just wanted to hear everybody else's reflections. Like, I actually personally asked for this type of Thoughtful Thursdays because I have a very long relationship with my husband. I've known him for like half my life, more than half my life. And so we've actually been, and all those like things that you talked about, we've actually been in that for the most part, both of us.
Wow.
Like a really toxic relationship. Like we grew up together, so like it's been like this roller coaster ride. But through like spirituality, we found more awareness. And so like I know his love language and he knows my love language. And when we don't actually nurture those in each other is when we have conflict. Like an example is I was actually, because I'm in Thoughtful Thursday and I'm also in book club, we just had a retreat. His love language is like the time together and personal touch. And mine are just the opposite. I like acts of service and gifts. Like those are mine. And so I've been spending a lot of time, our free time, with you guys. And he actually, I should have been driving, first of all. I was driving while I was listening to part of the retreat, and we almost got into an accident. Not because of me, because this lady ran a stop sign. I saw her, I stopped. But I was right in the middle of about to say something in the group, and my husband was kind of trying to embarrass me. Like, I don't even know if you guys caught it or if you guys heard it, but I got flustered, so I didn't really know what to say when I finally was speaking. And he like said something that kind of like broke my confidence a little bit. So then I rambled through it and I was embarrassed, and then, whatever. Later on though, like a couple days after, like he had to like apologize to me. He's like, I realized later on it's because I felt jealous of the group. And so when you were in that group and we were together in the car, and I'm like, he's like, I kind of think I intentionally like broke your confidence, like not really like thinking about it, but just like out of emotion kind of did it, because he was feeling like he wasn't getting enough of my attention and it was being brought somewhere else, and he was kind of like taking it out on the situation. But like, because we're aware now of these situations, we're able to, like, our fights are like shorter. Like, we've been together for over 20 years. So like, one thing that I love about our relationship is that he's constantly challenging me and I'm constantly challenging him, and we're like a reflection of each other. And before, it just used to make us really angry at each other and really fight a lot. But now we're actually able to like really reflect on like what we're doing and then work it out through that way. Like, he was able to come to me and say like, I was jealous. I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to. And so that, like, that for me, that like means a lot. So
thanks.
All right.
also, please let Daniel know that Thoughtful Thursdays is as much his family as it is yours. It's not just your group. He's part of our group. I always see him walking in the background. I'm like, oh, there's Daniel. Cool.
And he does sit through. He does sit through with some of them, especially like if I don't have my camera on. A lot of times, like, he is sitting next to me listening. But he also works a lot of hours. And tonight there's a Cardinals game, so he's doing that.
I got you.
And I've learned to let him do that.
And thanks for sharing that really nice realization. Yeah, because those are some of the tough moments that everybody experiences in their relationship, and being able to work through them with maturity and kind of coming to terms with each other is like sort of where we're at in our needs. That's how you get through it, right? And you guys have been an amazing example doing it for over half your life. That's pretty powerful. There's a comment here in the chat. Personally, I've liked people. I think Emily meant to say I've let people I love have kind of left me in the dark when I was being hurtful and didn't realize it. If you can be open and honest, even if it's hard, I think that's actually the kindest thing to do. Yeah, powerful point, especially in relationship to what Sway just shared, right? Because her husband was openly and honestly able to just say like, hey, this is what was bothering me. And that was the bravest thing to do, because just keeping it in would have made the situation worse, the relationship more, like tense. So yeah, beautiful comment, Emily. I really like that. Someone asks, Radha Govinda says, is frankly saying, quote, this is my love language and what is important to me a solution? It's definitely part of the solution, because a lot of people may not reciprocate outside of their comfort zone and not even know they're being hurtful or distant. I think, Radha Govinda, that's when you have to think about like circles of relationship. So the relationships that you're going to have in your most intimate sort of circle are the ones who will be willing to understand you and reciprocate with you on your level, right? We can't expect people who are not in that intimate circle. So, and that's how you determine how close you let people get to you in one sense, isn't it? Because if somebody's not willing to understand, relationships always take two to tango. So if you're going to make the effort to get to know someone, understand someone, and share with them love on their love level or their love language, then you need that back coming at you. Otherwise, you can't let them be in your most intimate circle. That's kind of, otherwise it's going to be very, very one-sided. And I don't know how long that could last. Nathan says, a situation I struggle with is understanding my parents' love languages and interacting with them in such a way that truly makes them feel appreciated instead of just assuming they communicate love the same way that I do. Yeah, that's a tough one. Does anybody have any reflections on this? How do you, Nathan, if I understand correctly, you're saying you're trying to figure out what your parents' love language is and being able to make them feel like you actually love them. Correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically. I've known them my whole life, but I feel like sometimes when I interact with them in certain ways, they really receive the love a lot more effectively than when I just try to like push my idea of how this is how I share love, and so this is how you should accept it.
I see. Okay, so it was a comment like you already know what you need to do to show them love. In other words, you know what you need to do to show them love.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Maybe I think I do.
Nice.
Could be honestly.
Well, you said it. You said like when you show them love in a certain way, then they feel loved versus just imposing your. Kanda has something she wants to say. Go for it.
I feel like what you can take into consideration when we're talking about our parents. I know we're very aware, we're very educated because there's a lot of information that we have about psychology. Sorry.
It's all good.
And I think our parents are a little bit more, they were raised differently. I have the same issue with my parents because they're not about communication. It's more like if there's a problem, we kind of just like ignore it and like sweep it under the rug and pretend everything's fine. And I think for them, they were taught a certain way. They were brought up in a more, I want to say, rigid environment, which makes them a little bit more, my parents anyway, they're a little bit less open to communication and heartfelt conversations. And they kind of just, that's not their love language. I think their love language is just like, I don't even think that's a love language, but it's like like showing respect and obedience and kind of like things like that. So, but they don't, I feel like they don't know better. And even if you try to explain things to them, they've lived their whole life a certain way. They've lived their whole life a certain way. So it's kind of hard to change when you're in your 50s or 60s versus when you're a young adult, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So keep in mind when you're thinking about your parents and how to communicate with them, think about what they want and how you can compromise to that without yeah.
I think you just brought up a really, really nice point, Kanda, about how some people they like to just push issues under the rug instead of rather communicate and talk about it. And that's definitely the case with, at least I know with some people in my life. Does anybody have any reflections on this? On what Kanda just shared? Oh, that was really interesting. Maybe something from your own parents or just your own life. Anybody wants to jump on this?
Yeah, maybe I have a comment. I think the goal is not to change them, because it won't be possible, but it's really to adapt in a way that we can talk the same language, basically. I mean, I had the same issue with my dad as well. So, I mean, there was not much communication, not feeling shown at all. I remember, I think it told me, "I love you" twice in my life, or something like that. so I really know what's, but it's just they were raised differently, and it's just not the way they show love. So you just need to understand the way that maybe they show love is they care about your future, your stability, and they want you to succeed in a way, and this is how they show love.
Good point.
But,
yeah.
I mean, just to come back on this language love, I mean, I know with my partner, I mean, I'm more act of service and quality time as a love language, but my partner is more words of affirmation and quality time as well. But I know I'm not complimenting a lot or saying things out loud, but I prefer to action, to show my love by cooking things, preparing things, helping, sharing a good quality time. And yeah, sometimes I just learn to say, "I love you, I care, or you look nice," blah, blah, blah. The thing that I was not used to do before, because for me, it was obvious. I didn't have to say it, but actions speak louder for me than words. But it's just different way of protesting and how they value themselves as well. So,
nice
and
comment.
I mean, it really comes, as you say, Harry, before, with the what happened in your childhood is so important, with this loving and unloving child, how you were raised, how much love you were given from your parents, and how much you need in the future. And I think it's crucial, and sometimes it's hard to fix, because then you're going to attract a lot of toxic relationship, and as you said, with patterns, but we need to see those patterns.
Yeah, well, that's something that, first of all, thank you. That was a brilliant comment. And also thank you to Kanda, and thank you to somebody made a really nice comment right after Kanda. Who was it? Someone who spoke right after Kanda? Who was that? I'm trying to remember right now, because there was something they said that I wanted to actually comment upon. It was after Kanda, and I'm blanking now for a second. Anyways, that was a really good comment. One thing I appreciate about what you said was this idea that, yes, we can expect our parents to change. That's a fact. But if we learn how to communicate with them, this is what Nathan was also saying, that when he shows them love according to how they want to be loved, then they actually receive it, versus when he tries to impose himself upon them. And I think Candace said something very similar, just understanding that, you know what, like, they come from a different time, they were raised differently, so their love language is going to be extremely different from mine. So yeah, those are all really nice reflections. Karen, you got one? And then we'll move on. Go for it.
Hi. I'm just reflecting on what you said about the parents' love language, because I realized that what they said is true about how kind of they're more so set in their ways. And I had the hardest time, because I read The 5 Love Language. That book is great. I read it a couple times when I was in like a rocky relationship with my baby daddy and stuff like that. And I was like just really trying to make it work and understand that sometimes things just don't work out, and that's okay as well. But the only person I had a really hard time applying it to, and I really don't understand where she would actually fall into, is my mother. That woman loves me more than anyone on this earth, and I know that for a fact because she's the only one that left me when I was young, and she's like my ride or die. But she gets under my skin like no one else as well at the same time. And I realized, because one thing that like I always go to her, but then I don't like what she has to say, because sometimes, you know, you want to talk to somebody just to
I guess this is what a therapist is for, but I guess like you want to just say something versus like hearing a response. Like you just want to be heard. Yeah, there you go. You want to be heard. And my mom's love language, though I don't know where it would fall under, is giving advice. And sometimes you don't want advice, you know? You just like just listen, Linda, you know? And yeah, but now I'm starting to realize, oh, like she's not doing it to irritate me. She's doing it like that is the way she expresses love. Like she's showing me that she's listening. She's giving me, you know, like attention, no, advice. And though that's not what I want, that is how she shows her love. So I have to accept it, even though it's painful to me.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for that honest.
Yeah.
And at least now we know a little bit about Linda, if we ever do meet her on Thoughtful Thursdays. Okay, carrying on.
Do you mind if I say something about that?
Go for it, Sway.
Oh my god, I'm laughing so hard over here. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen like this little thing. It's where like a husband and wife are talking, and she has like this huge nail sticking out of her head, and like she's like sitting there complaining to her husband, and he's like, "Well, why don't you just take the nail out?" And she's like, "I have this huge headache," and he's like, "Just take the nail out." And she's getting more frustrated with him, and it's because it's not about the nail. In the head, you know, it's about other things. And me and my husband have actually really struggled with this, and me and my sister. Yeah. So my parents didn't really raise me. Like my sister was kind of more like my mom. So it was just the same as she was describing. But I found my husband does the same exact thing. And I'm like, I just want to vent. I don't want you to fix it. So I just was dying laughing because like, oh my god, it's so relatable.
It's the classic sort of the stereotypical archetypical sort of male response to a woman's like frailty and problems is like, here I am, I will fix everything for you. And, you know, and sometimes anyways, it's funny. Okay, let's carry on now. This is the second thing that I think is really important to understand about building effective relationships is the fact that we all bring shit to the table. Okay, we've already discussed this quite a lot already, so there's no need to really dive into this even more. But I think it's just good to recognize that, you know, in relationships, that it always takes two to tango. It's never the other person's fault entirely, right? It's always mutual. We bring things to the table, they bring things to the table. It's always mutual. Of course, you know. Anyways, I could make a lot of jokes about this that, well, I think I bring a little bit less shit to the table than you, you know. Anyways, we do bring something. Let's leave it at that. Happy moments, I've talked about this as well. You know, just finding out what are the things that make each other happy. Like for my mom and I, it's traveling. You know, we both love traveling. We love discussing travel. Like, you know, I'm supposed to go to India in December. We're already talking about, well, she's already Googling like places you can go and, you know, not affected by COVID. She's already like exploring things. She's like, we could go here, we could go there. So, you know, it makes us super happy when we go on trips together. So I think, you know, I know for my partner and I, it's just spending quality time reading with each other. Like, you know, I remember one time we sat in a tea shop in London when I was visiting her last winter, and we just found a little tea shop, and I just grabbed a random book off the shelf and I just started reading to her, and we were just reading and discussing and sort of talking about what was in the book. And that was, you know, those are some examples of happy moments. You know, since we've talked about some tense moments in this call, why don't we just take two reflections? Does somebody want to share something that you discovered in a relationship where you were like, wow, this is like our happy space. For me and this person, this is our happy space. This strengthens our relationship. This fortifies our relationship. Anybody would like to share? Karen, go for it. Bridget, after Karen, you.
Okay. So my boyfriend that I'm with now is the most. So I come from a lot of toxic relationships, and I don't know, like the kids nowadays call it daddy issues, maybe. But yeah, it's been, I've never had a good relationship until now, and maybe that's honestly, I don't know why. But this is the most boring relationship I've ever been in. I think I shared this with Ari already. Like, it's so stable and it's so
chill that I sometimes am like bored. Like I kind of want to start a fight, but not I don't actually start one. But like yeah, it's drama free, and like I guess like I started to realize like a lot of times other relationships have been like so full of action, because not action, that's not the right word, like full of events, because most of the time we were not fighting, but there's always something going on. This relationship, it's like he goes to work, I stay at home, I do my thing, he comes home, we eat dinner, and then we're chilling, and like there's nothing, there's no like issues, there's like nothing, and I'm just like, you know, I don't know. So it's very stable. And what was the question again?
The question was, what are the happy spaces in your relationship with anybody? What are some things that you do together that create fortification or in the relationship? You know, what are the happy spaces that you have with someone in a relationship?
Sorry. Okay. So doing nothing, basically, similar to what I was talking about. Like
Awesome.
just being next to each other, but doing nothing. Like doing our own thing. Like I might be like editing videos or playing video games, and then he's just looking at YouTube videos of people opening up baseball cards. Or like just like super just we're in our own world, but I love that but we still share the same space. And I think that's actually my favorite way of spending time together.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Bridget, you had your hand up for a second?
Yes. So I think one of the happiest moments like I've had with like my ex was creating like a film together, and also just like being creative together and like bouncing ideas off of one another, and like getting feedback on other projects, and I don't know, just like messing around, being goofy and experimenting with like an old camera. And I don't know, just like I realized that in my future relationships, how much creativity, like I need to find someone who like wants to be creative with me. So
that's a really beautiful point. And when I was, Bridget, when I was researching this topic of relationships, I read a lot of cool articles and sort of just anecdotal things about how when people start relationships, it's because there's all these many happy moments kind of like stacked up next to each other. But as they spend time together and as the relationship sort of normalizes, the time between those happy moments starts to sort of spread. So like maybe in the beginning you go into a relationship with somebody because you're doing this creative project together, there's this energy, there's this passion, but then like once you're in it, then that which created the energy and passion, people don't recreate those moments so often, so then over time it feels like the relationship is getting weaker, and like where's the passion, where's the energy, things like that. So it just takes that work, to kind of, okay, let's work on a project together, let's make a movie together, let's do something together, let's create something together, because that's what brings juice, to the relationship. And that just takes like just being mindful in the part of each individual, whether it's a friend, whether it's, or like, for a kid, maybe it might be like in the movies, you see this motif, right? The kid plays baseball with his dad, as a kid. Then when they get older, they sort of, become their own people. But then maybe the kid comes back and like plays baseball with his dad. And that's the space where like they connect and they feel that happiness. So, really important stuff. Okay, we'll move on. And finally, sacrifice. There's a nice quote here from James Allen, who is one of the oldest authors on books of positive psychology and self-development. He says, "He who would accomplish little must sacrifice little. He who would achieve much must sacrifice much. He who would attain highly must sacrifice greatly." And I like this quote because I think this directly correlates to how much depth can we expect from certain relationships, right? How much have we given in those relationships? If we've given little, then we can expect little. And if we've given much, we can expect much. And if we've given a lot, we can expect a lot from those relationships. And it may not be, I know what some of us might be thinking, that, well, I have this person in my life, I've given so much to them, but they didn't give so much back. Well, the lesson there may not be what they didn't give back to you. Maybe your act of just giving alone was the experience that you needed to have to get something out of your system, to learn something about yourself. But the basic point I was trying to make is that whenever we sacrifice for something or someone, even if it's not fully reciprocated, the experience or the act alone can be extremely instructive. and very sort of purifying and cleansing in a way. I want to share one last thing, just two last things, and then I want to open it for more discussion. And we're sort of coming to an end here. I wanted to share with you guys what works for me personally in relationships, and see if you guys have any reflections on what works for you. So there's two things that work really well for me. One, because I'm a spiritualist and I've been practicing Bhakti Yoga for almost 10 years. I like connecting with friends, and some of my deepest relationships, both with my partner, but also just like my mentors and friends, have been over discussing like spirituality together and sort of just diving into spiritual text. I have a book club that I have every Saturday morning with some of you guys online. And I already feel like I'm friends with you guys because, this is one of my love languages. I just love discussing wisdom, spirituality, ancient texts, coming together and just talking about these things. And because I find that through the medium of ancient wisdom, a lot of stuff comes out. I'll tell you a story. When I first joined the monastery, my trainer, my monk Jaya, he's been on Thoughtful Thursdays. He was on the retreat. He's African American. He speaks really fast, very philosophical. Anyway, so him and I, one time, I remember our relationship was completely built on this. We just sat together and we used to read for hours and just discuss and talk about life through spirituality, through wisdom. And one time I remember we were in his room. There's a sacred text that we study in our tradition called Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it's considered to be like one of the most like esoteric philosophical texts of our tradition. And maybe someday we'll have a book club on it. Who knows? That'll be pretty cool. We read this for 6 hours, and then when we came out of the room, somebody else saw us. They were like, whoa, you guys look like you were high or something. And we literally felt like we were high. We were just so happy, just absorbing wisdom and friendship and love through the medium of like just ancient knowledge. So it's really powerful. The second thing that really works well for me, and this is why I found this image and I thought it was like the perfect description of what really works for me and what really builds strength in relationships for me, is when I can learn to come out of my world, the circle of my world, and step into the world of another person. And that takes a lot of communication, a lot of discussion, a lot of what I noticed for myself, a lot of consciously stepping beyond the limitations of my ego. Because I can see sometimes I come to this point within my mind where I'm standing at the precipice, the cusp of like how I want to feel and think about the situation, how I feel very strongly about it, versus what I can see, like what the other person thinks, feels, and experiences. And if I just take one tiny more step outside of the boundaries of my ego, I will step into their world. And I find sometimes, when I've done that in certain relationships with certain people and gone to that level of communication and sort of relatability, I find a depth and a kind of, you could say, a connection that's been that's very hard to replicate. So these are the two things that really work for me, is when I can work to kind of step outside of my own world and step into their own world. And I want to open it up as we sort of close tonight's session. What works for you? What works for you in building effective relationships? And is there anything that you take from this session tonight that you're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to look into that. I'm going to think more about this. I'm going to look more into this. I think this could help me build better relationships. Anybody wants to share? We can maybe discuss for a little bit longer. I know it's getting a little late.
I can share again.
Go for it.
A little bit of chatty Cathy tonight, huh? So we were talking about the 4 ways of attachment and the 5 love languages, and a few of you guys shared how and also something how I said that you kind of go through a little bit of all those things, and we've had other discussions where it's like, well, do you like truly know yourself? Mm-hmm. And a lot of this is just what we're going through. You're going through all these phases, and we're just basically we're learning. We're learning who we actually are, and other people help bring that out, and how we react to how they react is kind of how things work out, and like other people are able to work better with each other. What was your name? Sway, you said you were with your husband or boyfriend for like 20 years, but you like he was quick to like be like, oh, I was jealous. Like there's certain relationships that we're able to work like that. Like it's, you kind of confronts the problem that he's having, but not everyone has the courage to be like, oh, like I was wrong, and kind of a lot of people don't say that, and they'll just kind of let that situation be, and then it just it never gets confronted or solved, and that's why relationships eventually end. Is because people don't give the time to accept and appreciate like, you know, that other person. That's what loving is all about. It's not about being the same exact or being on the same page all the time. It's really just being, you know, true to one another, communication, etc., and all that. And for me, I've never really like had like, I mean, I've had like lovers and stuff, but I've never really been in like okay, like a relationship with a girl. Let's be like, okay, like, yeah, we're gonna buy it, like, you know, because I've always been kind of on the move, and you know, it's like, okay, well, when it stops working out, it stops working out, and it's fine with me. You know what I mean? So like, because right now I'm learning, no one really always knows who they are, and when they think they do, and they think they know what they want, that's kind of when the bad things start to happen, when they think they really know, but like because some people are too clingy, or I don't know. It's kind of a hard concept, but
Got it.
I don't know. That's kind of the gist of what I don't know. It's a learning experience to who we are, and for me, the best kinds of relationships, like just friends, and like seeing, you know, even sometimes people that I've loved in the past, like, you know, the best relationships for me is like, say if I don't see someone for like a couple of years or so, and then eventually we see them again, and it's just like kind of like right back to where we left off, you know, it's like on point. Those are my favorite kind of relationships, and constantly, like, when you are with each other, not just like being in the moment, but like also pushing each other to do better. Like, so when I found out I wanted to, like, when I pursued going to welding school and stuff, like I wouldn't say I was actually going to like pursue it. I kind of like was talking with my buddy. I was in Arizona, and I was like, yeah, like I was trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do, because like Corona, like virus just came out, and like everyone's closed down, and I wanted to find something that would be always like very sustainable and always like be needed, you know? And good. I really wasn't going to like full out pursue. I just kind of came up with the idea, I'd be like, oh, welding would be sick. And my buddy kind of like challenged me to that and was like, well, freaking do it, dude. And, or like, you know, we had a long conversation about it, and he kept just kind of like pushing me to do that. And I love it. Now I've been in school for the program for like 5 months, and I love it. You know what I mean? And those are the best kinds of relationships, you know, like lover or not, or just friend, you know?
Thank you, Nate. Thank you so much. There's a comment here from Radha Govinda Das, and he says, I've been thinking about how to develop my own responsibility within relationships. Powerful point. As opposed to giving the minimum required effort, right? And understanding that quality time and words of affirmation is so important for other people makes me think how I can also tap into that and not just let it fade away or even ghost someone, right? So I guess what you're trying to say is knowing that quality time and words of affirmation are important for some people, and how do you tap into that? In other words, how do you offer that kind of love? How do you offer quality time and words of affirmation to others? Yeah, definitely. Thank you. That's a nice point about developing responsibility within relationships. Does anybody have any brief reflections? I say brief only because time is sort of running out, and Ananda is online, so we're going to do a little bit of kirtan chants before we close out tonight's session. So we'll take a few brief reflections if anybody has. Does anybody?
I do.
Go for it.
I do. Just because, just on what other people just said.
Sure.
Sorry. Somebody else talking.
No, go for it, Sway. You go, and then Roshni, and Karen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I obviously, you guys heard that I have a long relationship with my husband, but we were a long time in that like triangle of like that drama triangle cycle.
Yeah.
And it was through like going to like spirituality and like knowledge of like knowing awareness that we really started to change that relationship. And it wasn't until we both started taking responsibility for our portion of it that our relationship started to get a lot better, and we started to grow, and our family was happier, like our house was cleaner, like just like all these things like changed our life just by awareness. And responsibility, because like before we would just constantly like, you know, it's your fault, you did that, well, you did this, well, you did that, like constantly. And it wasn't until we stepped away from that and kind of put ourselves in each other's shoes and saw it from each other's perspective that we realized that a lot of times we were feeling exactly the same way. Not heard, not understood. Like we both were like almost like a mirror to each other. And then once we became like aware of it, then
Powerful.
we can have better communication, and we started really to grow that way. And we're still growing, like we haven't finished by any means, but I think that's the good part about it, is because we also still challenge each other, and that's what makes our relationship still exciting.
Nice. Thank you, Sway. All right, we got a couple of people who I'll call upon the ones who haven't spoken at all this meeting, and then of course we'll get to all of you. So Rachel, did you have you raised your hand? You wanted to share something?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rachel. I guess like just kind of reflecting on everything that we spoke about and like on my own life. I think what works best for me too is really like spirituality, like without like my relationship to myself, to my spirituality, like relationships just don't just aren't as good. And so like I just think it's so important for me personally to connect to myself and my spirituality, because I notice like when I am more connected to myself and I do like take that time for myself and like connecting to the divine, I don't approach other people with like what can I get. Like I feel like before I would like kind of like enter into a relationship and be like, well, I want this, 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 and that in a person, instead of like, I don't know, like, stepping into that meditation and like doing more of that stuff for myself so that I can be more full and like approach the other person and be like, oh, like, actually, I'm curious. Like, I want to learn more about you. And like, I want to also like give as well, not just like, it's not just about me. So yeah, I think like that's, I mean, of course I'm not perfect. Like I'm still working on a bunch of stuff, but yeah, I think really like spirituality and also that's super important to me to have in a partner. Like I realized too, was like, I don't think that we need to be exactly the same, but I do think like there's also been a lot of studies that show that people do need to have at least some similar core values. And I recognize like I need to be in a relationship with someone like that, that values spirituality and that's important to them.
Thank you. It's a really beautiful reflection.
Yeah.
It's a really beautiful reflection, because one of the symptoms of a real spiritual practice is explaining the Gita, your heart sort of expands. So just like you said, it allows us to understand ourselves better, allows us to accept others more, and allows us to actually be interested in other people and give more of ourselves and receive more of them into us. So very beautiful point. I love that emphasis on spirituality as sort of a self quality that you need to practice in order to have better relationships. I love it. Energy, go ahead.
Yeah.
Energy, you have a comment? Energy? She raised her hand. I think she may have locked off, or her internet may have stopped working.
One more thing I'll just add really quickly is that it's also really important for me to like also be able to laugh and have fun, because I love the spiritual talks, but I don't want them to be like too serious either. So having that balance.
Humor is definitely important. Okay, Roshni, you're up. Go for it.
Okay, hi. I think what works for me is following my intuition. I feel like a lot of the times that like I've been told that I have to open up to certain people where my heart is like saying like absolutely not, because societally I'm obligated to or whatever. And I think what works for me is to follow my gut and open up to people who I feel comfortable opening up to, who I know the most part that there's safe space to open up to. If I'm being told that I gotta open up and be honest or whatever with someone like a family member or some person who I'm just like talking to them about those conversations and using experience in like previous experiences where that has gone south, it's like absolutely not. And I think a lot of what I'm dealing with is like the energy of other people's impositions. It's like I feel like it's still in me, and I think it's about, for me, discerning which is mine and which is theirs. Because especially as like an empath, like I take on a lot of people's energy.
Gotcha.
And so it's just important for me to like have boundaries and like be like, what actually nourishes my soul and what is fear-based and ego-based, trying to disguise itself as smart advice.
Gotcha.
So
thank you. Thank you for the
that's
comment.
me.
Thank you. Emily's got something on the chat box. Then Karen, you're up. She says, I have something to share. Check your shadow self because you can't see it when you're in the thick of it. When I'm in, say, an argument, I don't typically see what I'm doing wrong until I get some time and space. Right. What do they say? They say hindsight is 20/20. So like when you're outside of the moment, you can look back and be like, oh yeah, I guess I shouldn't have said that or done that. I don't typically see what I'm doing wrong until I get some time and space, view it from the third person and look at my actions. And if I think, oh man, that person is so full of crap, that I probably was, but just in deep denial at the moment. Yeah, interesting, right? So being able to have some self-reflectiveness or self-reflection towards our own actions is important, definitely. Thanks, Emily. Thanks for that reflection. Karen, you're up.
I just kind of want to add on to what you just said about like the not realizing what you're doing. I know there's advice in the Bible about being like slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to anger, something like that. I'm butchering it. I know that I'm butchering it because I probably heard it once, but it just resonated with me a lot. And then another thing, like a childhood pastor used to say, is God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, because you're supposed to listen twice as much and talk. I mean, obviously I like talking, but you know what I mean? Like in conversations or like in like, what is that? Arguments or whatever, we should be listening twice as much as talking. And secondly, all I wanted to do was make this a new Thoughtful Thursday tradition, is to just hear Adam's reflection so we can kind of warm him into becoming a speaker that he is meant to be.
Good idea.
So announcing Adam.
Passing it on to Adam. Go ahead.
He's so mad at me right now. He wants to fight.
One reflection from the talk that I guess was permeating my mind was the topic about the different loving exchanges, or what's it called? Loving
attachment patterns?
Attachment patterns.
Or the love languages.
Love languages. Because in my life, it was always confusing seeing, especially with my parents, 2 people that I knew loved each other. That love wasn't always received by the other individual. So I saw that love there, but I couldn't really connect the pieces together as to why that love wasn't being received. So through hearing this, that different people have different ways of giving their love, and if the other individual isn't in knowledge of the way that the other person gives it, it's not going to be received properly.
Exactly.
So I thought that was really beautiful, just connecting the different pieces of the puzzle, and it really makes sense now.
All right.
And kind of dispel a lot of delusion.
Please observe his amazing beanbags that he sits on.
It's very comfy.
which levitates when he meditates. Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, that is a very good point. That was actually the main reason why I wanted to talk love languages, was because not knowing that love languages can lead to a lot of feelings of I'm not being loved right now. Right. Awesome. So thank you everyone for that really heartfelt session and all your reflections. I really appreciate the honesty, the vulnerability. This is exactly why we have Thoughtful Thursday, so we can talk about these things and just be honest with each other. Areas where we need to grow, areas where we need to learn. So hopefully everyone got something from today's session that they might take with them into their life. I want to now introduce you to one of my best friends, Ananda Murari. He's somebody who about a year and a half ago, I made a decision that as I get older in my life, I want to have closer relationships with people. So I made circles in my heart, and I put a few people in my innermost circle. These are the people who get a call from me within 24 hours if they call me. I'm always available for them. I always give them the benefit of the doubt. And Ananda is in one of my inner circles. It's somebody who, if he calls me or texts me, he will get a response within 24 hours. I can't do that for everyone in my life, but a few people I want to. And I really, truly hope that he's someone that I can grow old with, and our kids can play with each other and, like that. So he's one of my best friends, also an amazing musician, and just a wonderful soul. So if anybody here from Colorado, anybody online from Colorado, if your camera's off, just raise your hand virtually. No? Okay, well, he'll be moving to Michigan soon. So if anybody's in Michigan, they could meet him there. Ananda, do you want to take it over and lead us into the kirtan a little bit? I have the mantra card pulled up, so maybe if you want to tell people briefly what the mantra is, and then show it to them and have them. Because many of them are not familiar with the. I did give a little intro of what kirtan is early on, So they know what to sort of expect, but it might be helpful for you to sort of walk us through it as well. Welcome to Thoughtful Thursdays.
Yeah, sorry for not being available earlier. I had mixed up my times in my mind, so I apologize if it was some awkward moments there.
Actually, it's better to end with you.
One thing I was just reflecting on, can you hear me fine?
We can hear you fine. I just said it's better to end with you than to start with you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're coming through good.
Okay. Just in reflecting on some of the comments that people are having, they were just so wonderful, and from such a place of investment. I can just tell the people that are on here are so invested into the relationships they have in their life, which is such an important quality. And I was thinking of this word responsibility. Someone had, I think Sway was saying that when her and her husband kind of took the responsibility that they had in the relationship, how that dramatically changed things. And I've heard the word explained. We could think about it like responsibility, like our ability to respond. And that relationships are all about refining our ability to respond to the other person and to the situations that we go through together. And then I was also thinking about how conflict is such a natural part of relationship. It's actually in many ways the greatest gift, because it's what churns a relationship even deeper. And one thing that was just kind of coming up for me is that it's something like 90% of the time how a conversation or conflict is started is how it ends. In other words, we have to be very, very conscious and aware when we start conflict, or when we engage with an issue or a disagreement. Not careful, like I want to avoid and not discuss the real thing, but that I'm keeping my emotions in check, and then I'm not just attacking that person. And relationships are everything. So it was such a nice, I caught the end of the discussion, but it was wonderful.
Thanks for being here. Can't wait for the kirtan and love your reflections. Go for it.
Yeah, so this kirtan, for anyone that hasn't done kirtan before, it's a type of musical meditation, which relies heavily on sound vibration as this powerful medium in the world to uplift and penetrate even the deepest layers of our psyche. And when you couple sound vibration with sacred syllables from the ancient traditions, it has a very transformative effect. And so we'll chant a mantra called the Maha Mantra, and I think Hari will pull it up. And this Maha Mantra is you could say a call. It's an invitation, and it's also a call to engage in a divine relationship and to serve a divine relationship, to nourish all of our relationships in this world, ultimately to connect with that divine relationship from which we all emanate. So just you can repeat with me at home, wherever you're at. I'll just do 2 words at a time, just for pronunciation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Krishna.
Krishna Krishna.
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama.
Rama Rama.
Rama Rama.
Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
So this is Hare refers to the feminine energy of Godhead, that supreme divine feminine. And Krishna and Rama, Krishna means the reservoir of all beauty. I'm at this place where I often come. It's dark now, but this is a great place to watch the sunset. And there's always like 12 or anywhere from like 12 to 25 people here at sunset, because we're attracted to beautiful things. And the source of all that attractions, that person is Krishna, or the Supreme, that love supreme. And Rama is another name for that love supreme, wherein which all pleasure is derived, the highest quality of spiritual pleasure. And so this is a mantra, a song, wherein which we can tap into that. So I'll sing this whole mantra through, And then wherever you're at, you can repeat back. And feel free to allow the mind to absorb all of the sound. And give yourself the opportunity to really invest your attention and your heart into this sacred sound. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Once again. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Sing together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, all together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Thank you, Ananda. Thank you so much for that beautiful kirtan. Very grateful that you could make it from, even though you just finished a long shift at work. So everyone, thank you all for your participation tonight. I look forward to being with all of you, not next Thursday because it's Thanksgiving. I think most of you are going to be at home with your family. So we're going to skip Thoughtful Thursdays next Thursday, and we will reconvene on December the 4th for our next session. So I look forward to, there's a lot of comments here in the chat box, Ananda, all for your kirtan. Everyone's loving it. So yeah, thank you. That was really heart melting. It was beautiful. And hopefully Ananda will be back with us in a couple of weeks. Do some more kirtan. Yeah?
Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
You guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I'll look forward to seeing all of you again in 2 weeks. Take care of yourself. Be well. Be wise. Be happy. I'll see some of you on Saturday morning or Sunday for the book club. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye. Have a good day.